All right, welcome back to the Blender 3 Docwalk. This document is node groups. Okay, so node groups are, if you've developed software or if you're a coder, you'll know kind of how functions and methods work. Node groups do a pretty similar thing. So I'm going to jump over to geometry nodes, but just to get started, just to kind of show you what's going on here, I'll hit new and I'll pull in a few, remember holding shift down, tapping A to bring up my add menu, and I'm going to drop in some geometry. Oh, let's do the join, because I know it's both geometry in and out. And you know, we're just gonna I'll do a ray cast, and I'll do another geometry. Wow, okay, there we go. All right, so let's think about this for a second. I'm going to do that. Okay, yeah, sure, this works. Okay, so let's say this is something useful, and I want to reuse it multiple times and be able to feed in different attributes and geometry pairs. So what I can do is select all of them, and I can either hit Control G. So Control G is create a new group. Right click and go down to group. Okay, so let's do Control G here, holding Control down, tapping G, and you'll notice everything kind of shifted a little bit. But the difference is that this group input and this group output are not the same inputs and outputs as before. You see this little up arrow right up here in the corner? I'm going to go up out of this group I just created, and you can see that this is the node group we just created right here. This group input and this group output are, I guess, your root input and outputs. Side note, you cannot include the parent group input and group output nodes in creating a new node group. So just keep that in mind. Okay, if you want to get back into your node group, this little symbol right up here can do it. You can also get in by selecting it and hitting tab. Now, I could add another group in here, but it cannot be the same group. For instance, Control Tab is going to bring me back out of this. Okay, so Control Tab pulls you out of your group nesting, and Tab brings you into whatever node group you have selected. So I'm going to go ahead and create a completely separate node group here. So Shift A, and let's just do something kind of whatever. That, yep. Shift A. Oh, it doesn't matter. Really doesn't matter. Shift A and find something else. I do need to make sure that it's got some input and output that I can use here. So, okay, yeah, that'll work. All right. That's not gonna work. Whoops. Remember, cutting your links is performed by holding Control down and your right mouse key, and then dragging. That will cut your links. Let's see, why do I have two spirals? Did I select spiral twice? That's weird. Let's think here. Let's drop in something we can just buddy everything up with. Well, yeah. That's what we'll do. Oops. Okay, and let's bring that guy to there. Let's get rid of this guy. And let's pull up. Okay. Okay, this will work. Okay, we're gonna do this connect that to that. All right, there we go. So now I'm going to select them all, Control G to group it up. All right, now you'll notice that previously, here, let me jump back out of this and show you. On this other group right here, when I, before I created a group, I had previously, had all set up, correct? Which is why these links remained. If I go inside, tab. If I go inside here, you'll notice that the links that I had previously created still exist. They persisted across the creation of the group. So Control Tab to get back out. So that's why these links exist. Okay. With this one, tab to go in, you'll notice that did not happen because I did not have those links. I did not previously hook them up to my group input and output, to my parent input and output. So tabbing back in, but once I do that, as soon as I connect this to here, it's going to auto create that node. Okay, so geometry in, geometry out. Now when I jump back out, now I have my input and output, and I can hook this guy up. I could either do it like this or stick one in the middle here. But now notice that I have two node groups created. I can edit the names. Remember, I can bring up my side panel with N, bring N up. Here's the label area. So let's see, first group. Okay, and this is my other one. Let's do big 2. That works. Okay, and I've got my nodes named. Keep in mind, in real life, you're going to want to name them according to what you use that particular grouping for. Again, this is really close to how functions and methods work in programming. You've got your kind of subroutine that you tab in. It's set to do a certain perform a certain set of operations in a certain way, in a certain order, right? And my inputs and outputs are really close to to like passing variables into your method and or function. So Control Tab to get back out of here. So yeah, once I've got them created, you can reuse them. So if I hit Shift A, just traditional add menu, okay, bring up my add menu, and I go down to group, you'll notice here that I've got the two new groups right here. I can change the name of it, and they'll why not? Let's do this. Whoops. I can change the group name of it, and there we go. Okay, so Shift A to bring up your add group, and if I go down to group, you'll notice that I have the original names of the two groups here, node group and node group 001. If I click on either one of these, it's going to create a new instance of that group, just like as if I were to click on any other node type, in my add list. So let's go ahead and recreate node group, the first node group. There it is, and I can drop it in wherever I want. There we have it. Whoops. Move him up here. I can even, disconnect this, stick that up there, and then bring this one down to create a new group output link. And so there you go. Useful, but this is demonstration purposes here. Okay, now the one thing you can't do, let's go into this first one I created. Remember, select the group you want to enter or expand, and then hit Tab to do it. Now if I come inside here and I hit Shift A, oh, here we go. I'm in group. You'll notice that the group that I'm in no longer appears. That's because you cannot do recursive groupings. You can't, a recursive function, right, or a method, or in this case a recursive group, would be a group that can call itself. In programming, you can do that. You can cause a lot of problems doing that as well, but that's one of the things that they are helping us avoid here by not allowing that. You can't include the same group within itself, but you can include any other group. So I'm going to include the second group we created, and we'll just stick them between these two guys there. So now group 1 contains a copy of group 2. Control Tab to get out of here. Okay, so in case I wasn't completely clear, I just want to make sure I really make a point on this topic. If I select whatever group I select, and I go into by hitting Tab, okay, this group input and this group output, these are specific to the group. Like I kind of said this earlier, but this is a really important point. These are not, connected to anything else other than this group. When I created this group with just these nodes, this group input and this group output were created specifically for this group. It is more or less how this group communicates with anything going on outside of it, how you plug it in. For instance, this group input, the geometry and attribute in, and geometry and hit position out. Yeah, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But when I pop back out and I take a look at the group, that's exactly what we see here. We have a geometry and attribute in and the geometry and hit position out. Okay, so that is, in a very literal sense, exactly what the group input and group output nodes do. They are the group's inputs and outputs. The parent, your node tree's parent, group input and output are a separate entity. They connect your node tree to whatever system you're manipulating. So just want to clarify that point really quickly before we move on here. So you can have as many nested groups as you like. If I grab all of these and hit Control G one more time and group those guys up, now I'm going to have one more group within which we have these groups, within which we've got this group, within which we've got this group. Okay, so you can do multiple tiers of nested groups. So I'm going to Control Tab out of all of them. And now that I've got my entire bundle of groups so far built into this one now final group here, we're going to jump over here to our sidebar. And we have talked about the Node tab, the Tool tab, and the View tab in previous videos. Today we're going to talk about the Group tab. You'll notice immediately that we have inputs and outputs. These directly correlate with your group input and group output nodes. All right. So we've got geometry, attribute, geometry, and geometry, attribute, geometry. Now you can remove, reorder, or add new ones. So say I want attribute at the bottom here. I want my geometries all clustered in one area. I can select attribute and hit the down arrow, and it will move it down. If I want to get rid of the attribute input, I just hit the minus sign here. Bye-bye. And I can also add a new socket by hitting the plus sign. Before I do that, keep in mind that whatever socket type you have selected, so if I have this geometry socket type selected and I hit plus, by default the new socket is going to be a new geometry socket. Okay. Now I can change that if I want down here in the type. I've got that selected. It says type geometry. I hit the down arrow and I can select whatever socket type I would like. If I want an object, input socket, I can do that. Here, this is the name of your socket, which is going to appear here. So now that it's not a geometry type anymore, I can do, type in something like object for geo, whatever. Don't get too fancy with how you name your sockets, but be descriptive enough to where when you look at it again, you're gonna go, oh yeah, that's what that's there for. That's what I'm using that for. So hit enter to cement that in. So now we've got object for geo here, whatever that means and whatever we're going to use it for. Now in the case of down here, right, like in outputs, I don't have any socket type selected. Now previously I showed you that whatever socket type you have selected and you hit add, your new socket is going to be whatever socket type that is. If you don't have a socket type selected, it's going to default to just your typical float value socket type. Okay, I'd also like to add that in the case that you end up designing a node group, I'm going to tab into this guy really quick, with an incredibly massive number of sockets. Each list here has a search function. We did go over this in a previous video, but just in case you missed it, this kind of double-headed arrow here inverts your selection. So if I, put in attribute, okay, attribute's going to come up. But if I invert the selection, everything but attribute, here we go, is going to come up. Okay, and yeah, alphabetize it and or put it in ascending or descending order. All right, now let us talk about the tooltip. Over here, whenever you select on a socket, you have your fields, you have your type, name, and tooltip. So what tooltip does, it's kind of a note to yourself or to whoever else you're working with concerning that specific socket. So one thing to keep in mind here is that your geometry sockets in this context won't work in a geometry in your geometry nodes editor. Let me show you why. Okay, so I'm going to add let's do a vector. All right, we've got a vector. We're going to call it vSauce. Just cause. Okay, tooltip. Bring in vSauce val. Okay. Now, where does the tooltip show up? The tooltip is going to show up over here. You're not going to see it anywhere in your editor or hovering over your, sockets or anything like that. It's going to show up over here. Now, you see that we are now here. Let's select the level we're on, geometry nodes. We're on the top level here, so we're going to select that. We're already on it. Select it, and you can see that it has vSauce right here, right? Well, when I hover over it, it says input 9, and then underneath it, it says bring in vs val. That is where your tooltip shows up. It does not show up hovering over any of your socket nodes or anything like that. So on top of that, you'll notice that in our inputs here, it has object for geo, but it doesn't have our geometry input anywhere. Interesting, right? If we go to node group, you'll notice it has attribute here, but again, it does not have our geometry node or our geometry socket. It doesn't matter, which node group we go to, it's not going to have the geometry sockets there listed. I'm not sure exactly the reason for this, but it also will not recognize a second geometry socket. So we're in node group 001. I'm going to add another geometry socket, and now we get this little message here that says node group can only have one geometry input. So it's just informing you that you can only have one geometry input. Obviously, right? I mean, you're dealing with your single object geometry input and output here. But yeah, I am not sure exactly of the reason why the geometry sockets don't show up over here. Anyway, that's tooltips. Yeah, so let's just go back to the top one here. Oh, nope, it was, here we are. So that's tooltip, okay? And it's gonna show up for each one of those. I'm gonna clear this up really quick. I'm going to get rid of all of these. I'm gonna start fresh here, just so that I don't confuse anybody. I'm going to hit new, start a whole new geometry branch here, or geometry node tree here. And we're going to keep it really simple this time, because these last few things, I don't want it to, be confusing for anybody. So here we go. We are going to add something super simple, geometry with a geo input and output. That is this one. Stick that there. I'm going to turn this into a group by hitting Control G. Okay, now this is my group, and these are my new group inputs and outputs. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to add, let's do a vector. Well, yeah, let's do a vector. Okay, I'm adding the vector, and I'm going to give it default values. Okay, so for my XYZ, we'll do 2, 3, and 4, or whoops, 5. Okay, and now here in the minimum and maximum field, I'm going to hit -10, and for max, I'm going to do 7. Okay, all right. Now, I'm going to jump back out to my mother node branch here, or node tree here, and you can see that this input field has been added, but my default values are not there. Okay, when you add default values to a brand new node group, it will not affect the current node group. It will only appear when you add a new instantiation of that group. So now that we have created node group 003, I'm going to Shift A and go down to group and add a second instantiation of node group 003. Now you can see that the new instantiation has our default values 2, 3, and 5. One more thing is that remember the minimum and maximum I set, what, -10 and +7, right? So I'm going to drag to alter this value here all the way down to -10, and it stops. I can't go any further. Okay, and all the way up to +7, and then it stops, and I can't go any further. However, if I want a value outside of that range, say 517, I can enter it manually. All right, the minimum and maximum constraints don't apply to direct text input. Okay, and now while we are here, let's make a point. I now have 2 copies of the same node group, right? They're both node group 003. I'm going to go into the original one, and I'm going to alter it a little bit by adding a new, let's just add a new material selection. There we go. And I'm going to put that there, and I'm going to hook it up to my group input and of course group output. Okay, all right, now I'm going to jump back out, and we will find that the same associated socket input and output sockets appear on both instantiations. So we've got selection out, material in. Okay, so changing the node group will change and alter and have an effect on other instantiations of that same group. Just so you're clear on that, because yeah, I could see that turning into a mess. And last but not least, we're going to go back in and edit this group one more time. And okay, in the our vector input here, we are going to hit hide value. We're going to click this little toggle button and jump back out. Now you notice that you no longer see the vector fields, like the actual input vector fields. And notice here for material, let me widen this a little bit here. Okay, we've got our material selection field here. If I jump back into this group and select material and then go down and hide that value, okay, jumping back out again, that selection field no longer exists. So that's what this hide value does. And to bring them back, you simply untick both boxes, and we'll jump back out, and now you can see the direct input fields for both your vector input and your material input. Okay, now quickly on the topic of entering and exiting, expanding a node group into a full-blown, an exploded view of that node group. We're going to jump into this one. Now notice, okay, I've got everything here, right? Actually, let's jump out to, well, yeah, we're going to have to make this one a little messy. Okay, so let's get rid of this guy. And we're going to hook him back up there. Okay, and we're jumping into this fellow. And we're going to node these guys up, Control G. Okay, now we're in node group number 4. And now we're going to node these guys up in an even deeper node here. Control G. So this is node group 5. Okay, now I've got, I'm what, three layers in now. So I'm going to Control Tab out, Control Tab. Okay, this is my top node or my top level here. Now with Control Tab and Tab, okay, I'm going to select this. Okay, we're at the top level now, and I'm just going to hit Tab to go in. So now I'm one level in. Now if I hit Tab again, I'm going to go in even further. Hitting Tab again, even further. Now that I'm at the base, I'm going to hit Tab again, and it's going to jump me back out to node group 5, to the next level up. Hit Tab again, and I'm going to go back in. Tab again, come back out. Tab again, go back in. So Tab does perform both actions. Okay, it will get you into a node group and pull you out of a node group, but only Control Tab will pull you all the way out. And Tab only does both of them when it can't go any further. Okay, so if I had, let's see, let's get rid of this one, and actually, okay, all right, we're at top level, we're going in 1. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this guy, and we're just going to add just something to stick in here really quick. Right, link it up. Okay, I'm going to Control Tab out. Okay, now if I hit Tab, I go in. Tab, I come out. Tab, I go in. Tab, I come out. Just, I guess, be cognizant of that behavior. It will go in as deep as it can until it hits the end, and then it will oscillate between in and out, in and out, in and out. Okay, so the only thing that's going to pull you all the way out of a super deep nested set of nodes within nodes within nodes within nodes is Control Tab. Okay, now whenever you do create a new group, the default name that it uses is node group. It's going to have this kind of forest green background as kind of a color-based identifier, and any additional group, any nth group after your original created node group is going to have this appended .003.00, well, starting with .001, 2, 3, 4, 5, on and on. It does recommend to use some sort of a naming convention, depending on what type of node group you're creating. So this is a geometry-based node group. So you've got geometry, composites, material nodes. So the documentation simply suggests that you adopt some, naming convention to help you distinguish between the different created node groups. So, for instance, if you just put a big capital M or a capital G for geometry, or a capital C for composite nodes. So in this instance, I would put a capital G. The documentation specifically warns that Blender doesn't make a distinction between material node groups and composite node groups. I don't know if that's just kind of like an artifact from an earlier version of the documentation, or if you're good with geometry nodes. Either way, you might just want to play it safe and just have a naming convention for each node group type that you make. So big capital G for geometry, big capital C for composite, big capital M for material node groups. So G, my node, and then stick it in the label, and there you go. You know that this is a geometry node group right off the bat. Especially if you're importing them or appending them to another project, that might be a bit on the helpful side. If you want to ungroup, it's Control-Alt-G. So Control-Alt-G, blunk, and that dissolved the group, and it maintained the links. Okay, so Control-G doesn't just destroy everything. It just ungroups it, unwraps it, gets rid of the group, but leaves everything else intact. So like for example, let's duplicate that fellow, stick him here. Let's duplicate him again, stick him there. Okay. We're going to group it all up with Control-G. Jump out of it. Okay. Now Control-Alt-G. See, everything's still intact. Also, I'm going to group this back up. One more thing here. Jump back out. Okay, we're going to jump into this node group, and I'm going to select this last one here. I'm going to hit P. Now, it's going to give me two options, which is copy and move. Now, what this does is it's going to separate this node from the node group. If I hit copy, it's going to copy it, okay, to the parent node and keep the group intact. If I hit move, it's going to move it to the parent node and remove it from the group. You get what I'm saying? So let's copy it. Let's do both here. We're going to copy it. Now you can see that it pulled me out to the parent tree, and the join geometry node has been copied up here. And I can just get rid of it now. Okay, now we're going to go back in here. And this time, I'm going to hit P. And I'm going to move it, okay, to the parent node tree. Okay, now it's been moved up here. But if I go back into my node group, you'll see that it no longer is there. We would have to reconnect them there. Jump back out, and there you go. That's how you would, any selected nodes within a group, if you want to pull them out or whatever you want to do with them, that's how you would do it. Just hit P when you're inside the group to either copy or move them back out to the parent tree. Okay, now if I want to turn around and do the opposite thing, if I want to get a bunch of nodes together and stick them into my node group, say I've built this huge wonderful tree. Let's add a few things here. Stick that guy there, and let's see. Well, why not? Right? Stick him there. Stick that guy there. Well, did I miss the... Yeah, there she is. Okay. So at least try to make this sensible. Yeah. Okay. Let's say I want to move these three into this node group. Okay, so I've got these three selected. Now I need to make sure that the node group that I want to move them into is the last node I select. So make sure I select all of these. Select all of these first, and then select this one last. And now I'm going to go up to node and do insert. Let's see, group insert. There we go. Okay, now that plucked them all down there in a very similar sort of order that they were in previously. It's given us its own group input and group output, just to keep it contained, right? But now if I jump back out, that's the only node left out here. So everything that I just moved has been completely and fully moved inside this node group here. The only thing you really need to make sure, you might want to just group these ones up immediately as soon as this is done by hitting Control G, and then sort of linking up your input. Oh my gosh, let's get in here a little bit. Linking up your input and outputs, as nonsense as this is. But you do that, we can hop back out. Now we can get rid of this, because any one node group can only have one group input and one group output. So here we've got two of each, so we've got to ditch a couple of them. Okay, but now we have a node group containing everything. We're going to tab in, right? This is the one we just created from the outside, stuck in the new one, and then we batched up into their own new group. And now we can just stick it on the line there, and we're good to go. I hope that that wasn't too confusing to follow. Just go ahead and open Blender and roll through this on your own, because it will all fall into place and start to make sense. And lastly, we're going to talk about appending node groups from other blend files to moving them around between blend files. And how you are going to do that is, if you go up here to File, we're out of our geometry node editor for a second. Go up to File. You'll see two options down here. There's a link and append. These two are extremely similar, though linking does not allow you to manipulate and alter certain files in certain ways. Append is just a full copy and adoption of that file. So what you would do is you simply hit append, you go through your file system, find the node group that you want to link over, select it, and this would be where in the blend file where the difference between composite nodes, geometry nodes, material nodes, where there's no native Blender method of naming them differently or anything like that. So it's kind of up to you to make sure that you know what kind of node it is before you go trying to append it or import it into a different blend file. But yeah, you would go through another project's directory, fish it out, hit append, and once you do that, you would just add it in your editor the same way we've been doing it since the start, by holding down Shift A, or holding down Shift, tapping A, and then it would be down here in group. It would be one of these many node groups. But yeah, it would be here under group. Okay, well, that is it for node groups. I will see you guys next time in the frame node document. If you found this useful, helpful, fascinating, please like, subscribe, and share. It would really help with getting the momentum of the channel moving. So thanks again for watching. I will see you guys next time.